So I've taken all the data in the graph that we just completed here, and I put it in this rotation chart. Okay, so I've gone step by step, and for example, this first line shows that for 0 rotation, which is the same as 360 or negative 360, we start with XY, we start with 8,5, and then at 90 degrees up here, or negative 270 degrees rotation, we go to negative 5,8, which is the same thing as negative Y comma X. I just copied it from there, and then I've copied from the 2 bottom positions to make 2 more columns in this chart. Okay, so you can check to make sure the chart looks pretty accurate. And now we're going to look at this chart only, because this is sort of the chart you're going to have to refer to when solving many problems regarding rotations around 0, 90, 180, or 270 degrees. So you're going to have to be able to reproduce this chart, okay, for any starting point. So you need to be able to reproduce it for x comma y, because then you know you can do it for any starting point. You just have to know what x is, and the second coordinate is going to be what y is. So how can you, what's a trick perhaps? You could memorize each of these 4 configurations. Okay, so if that works for you, that's fine. But I'm going to show you another method that you can use, which is called the iterative method. So let's take a look at the iterative method. The way this works is you're going to start with your point here in the first quadrant, x comma y, and then you're going to do 2 steps to go to each subsequent quadrant counterclockwise. So going from the first quadrant to the second quadrant, as you rotate this 90 degrees, and you want to find out the point that it's going to go into here, you do 2 things. First, you swap the coordinate positions, so that means x, y, an intermediate step becomes yx, right? We swap the coordinate positions, but that's not the answer yet. The second step is to change the sign of the first coordinate, which is now y. So if we change the sign of the first coordinate, we get negative y comma x. And that's the second coordinates, that's the coordinates in the second quadrant after you've rotated it 90 degrees. How to get the coordinates in the third quadrant? Again, we're rotating another 90 degrees, and we want to know these coordinates here. Well, it's iterative, which means you take the last result and then you apply these 2 steps again. So let's go ahead and do this. From this quadrant, we have to swap the coordinate positions, so negative yx becomes x comma negative y, but that's not the answer yet, because then the second step is to change the sign of the first coordinate, so x becomes negative x. So we have negative x comma negative y, and that is the answer for the coordinates in the third quadrant. And finally, to go to the fourth quadrant and to find out what the points are over here, we've got to again apply our iterative method once more to the result in the third quadrant. So we take this result in the third quadrant and we swap coordinate positions. That gives us negative y comma negative x, but that's not the answer yet, because then we go back to the second step. We have to change the sign of the first coordinate. So instead of it being a negative y, it's now a y. So our answer is y comma negative x, and that is the those are the coordinates in the fourth quadrant. Okay, so this iterative method is a very quick and easy method to go from any xy in any quadrant, and then to fill in all the other quadrants as you do a rotation of 90 degrees.